Tesla doing what Tesla does, constantly making their products better. We got a lot of detail about the route planning update. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I covered DC fast charging for out-of-spec bits, and one of the things that is tremendously apparent is that Tesla rules the day. They have been at this game longer than anyone, have perfected it to a science, and know how to get stations in the ground with regularity and a volume that no one else can match. Basically, it takes everyone else to make second place. And one of the things that goes with that is when you start to get into volume numbers of stations in the ground, there's some macro problems that you need to deal with. And particularly, one of the things that they have been combating is stations getting overwhelmed or congestion or queuing. And back when Rebecca Tanichi was at the helm, she had focused on solving this problem using macro analytics and some algorithmic approaches to redirecting incoming cars that needed to charge to different stations. Well, we have a advancement of that underlying technology that was put in place by Rebecca's team back in the day. And now there are additional details about what to expect with route planning. Now, a couple of things I'd like to keep in mind, and I actually jotted down some notes because as an EV nerd who focuses on DC fast charging, I actually like to pick my own stations. I'm a former Tesla owner, and I liked my Tesla, and I liked the approach where I just plugged in my final destination and let it pick my route for me. But one of the things as an EV owner that I find enjoyable is the gamification of getting from point A to point B. So I actually like the process of venturing off the beaten path and also exploring, I guess is for lack of a better term, and discovering new charging stations and things like that. But a couple of things that for me is an important part of the overall process of what station I may select as a human being. If I'm just letting the car select my stations for me, this may or may not be a factor in it. We'll get into the specific details here, but I just want to go over this. I jotted this down. Price, whether or not it's going to be a heavily congested station. Now, obviously, Electrify America in non-Tesla worlds has been notorious for being overly congested and queuing problems with reliability issues as well. They've worked pretty heavily on reversing that image. So there is that, but that's one of the things that you have to be careful of. And I would look at PlugShare posts to see if there was a station that would be overwhelmed. And if so, I would generally avoid it, even if it said it was going to be available in my route planning. The distance I have to travel off my route to get to the station is a very big factor for me. And then some things like I took a trip from Charlotte, North Carolina to Dallas, Texas in a rented Tesla Model 3, which was a ton of fun. It was just ridiculously fun. And there was a station in Vicksburg, Mississippi, I believe it is, on the Mississippi River. And I didn't really need a charge, but if I was going to stop somewhere for a charge, boy, was that beautiful. And I was looking at some of the PlugShare pictures, and it really was and it lived up to exactly what my expectations were. You plugged in, and as you were charging, you were looking at the bridge that was crossing the Mississippi River, and the river was right there. It's a huge portion, the very wide breadth of the river right there. So that was kind of cool. So there's these intangible things that I kind of like to gamify and find and explore. And if I just have the route planner picking my stations for me, I kind of lose that aspect of the gamification because it's just picking some generic stations and it doesn't really know that I like, a certain type of tree, or I like to sit on a picnic bench, or who knows what, it doesn't know those little intangible things that me as a person with preference, I would choose. I like barbecue, so maybe somewhere close to a barbecue station or something. Additionally, the state of charge. Generally, if a route planner inside a Tesla or another car chooses a charging station, it does so because it feels the state of charge is needing a refresh in order to continue on. Now, for me, it's not really dialing in the exact best minutes I can save in a trip. As I'm going down the road, There's some other factors, as I said. So I might want to stop when I'm at 40% state of charge, which a route planner might not put me at that station, because it thinks, no, you have plenty of battery, keep going. You don't need to stop here. Well, I want to stop here because I'm next to the McDonald's that I grew up next to, and I'd like to see the thing. And I'm going to charge while I'm here, and so I'm forcing the car to make a decision, and then all of a sudden it freaks out and has to recalculate my charging stops from that point forward. So there are those things. And so in general, when I'm on a road trip, I will not use the route planning to pick my charging stops. I will pre-pick my charging stops, or I will pick them as I go along the way, and I'll have a couple that I select from, and then I'll manually enter my next stop in, and then just let the route planner take me to my next charging stop. And I'm obviously an EV nerd who's into DC fast charging, so I understand not the normal case. So what Tesla has done for people who are not like me, who actually let the computer make the route planning decisions for them, what has been happening is these charging stations, because there are now getting to be so many vehicles in operation, that's VOC, vehicles, or VIO, vehicles in operation. It's a term commonly thrown around in the DC fast charging industry. There's so many of these vehicles in operation that you get kind of like this confluence of decision making, and all of a sudden an EV charging station is overwhelmed. And as I said, Rebecca Tanichi did a good job of making preliminary steps in order to reroute people towards stations that were heavily utilized. Well, the Tesla Supercharger team has now advanced this technology to even further, to using something called predictive analytics. So I work in information technology, and generally if I hear the word AI, I have to suppress a gag reflex, because I've heard the term so many times over the past 7 years. It's really starting to get off-putting for me. But there is something called predictive analytics, and the basic concept of predictive analytics is when an event occurs, assuming you have telemetry, you can roll the clock back and say, okay, well, what happened preceding this event, in order to see when these similar types of events happen, you can probably predict that this event is going to happen. That's what they call predictive analytics. And then you try to predict, and then were you successful, yes or no? And then you recalibrate, and that whole process is machine learning and predictive analytics. And so that's basically what they were doing here. What they're saying is that in certain circumstances, as the traffic pattern is got certain telemetry earmarks, and these are all macro autonomized data from the vehicles passing through. Did a car pull in and charge, or did a car not pull in and charge? And so in that way, they can use a scenario in order to create a predictive approach for something that might happen in the future. There's this many cars, we see this type of traffic pattern, they're at this state of charge. We're predicting that 14% of these cars that are at this state of charge, that are in the general vicinity of this geo-blocked area around the supercharger, are going to pull in and start to charge. Therefore, we can predict in the next 15 minutes there's going to be queuing in the future at this supercharger. Therefore, we are going to preemptively start to rerouting people away from this supercharger. Now, let me just show you really quickly. I've got on PlugShare a location that is probably a good case study. Okay, I am going to show you where I am. I am in Greenville, South Carolina. This is Interstate 85, which is connecting Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia, and midpoint is Greenville, South Carolina. It used to be there was only this one supercharger at the Hilton Garden Inn right off Interstate 85. And basically this little juggernaut of spaghetti bowl is a bit of a mess, but you get off and there's a mall right over here. And let me go to satellite view and I'll show you. It's just very densely populated. So kind of a bit of a juggernaut in order to navigate. And then you go down here to the Hilton, and the Hilton was really accommodating to the Tesla folk. They had a little stand instead of a reception area. They had a little stand where they were selling sundries and snacks and whatnot, and the restroom was open. And so it was a very great supercharger location. Now they were building this one at the Cracker Barrel right off the exit, further up. So there's two Tesla supercharger stations right here, and it was kind of funny. I was here at this location, and let me just pull up some pictures. It's a nice charging station. It's got pull-through. You can't see the pull-through stalls. It's back over here. Let's see if there's another picture with the pull-through. No. Negative. Anyway, so there is a pull-through. You're going to have to take my word for it. And I was shooting a video at this location because there was a new Tesla Supercharger that was coming into the South Carolina area that I had my eye on. So I was shooting a video. It was not open, but because it was a Tesla Supercharger station and people had to drive by it to get to this one, they just assumed as they were getting off the road and saw it that this is their station, right? So in the nav of the Tesla, it said get off at this exit, and then they saw these stations, and they would pull in. And while I was there videotaping, I think 3 Tesla people pulled in, and I had to say, hey, the station is not open. You have to go down to the other one. But this is probably a great case study because as you're going down 85, if there's a certain type of traffic pattern that this new algorithm detects, that this station is going to be overwhelmed, the good news is there's this other one just a little bit further away that the nav can direct you to. And between these two, how many? So there's 16 stalls here. I think this is 8. 8, yes. 8 V3 Tesla Superchargers, Tesla only. And then, as I said, this one's closer to the exit, though, and it's at a Cracker Barrel, which is open it's open longer, and the conveniences here are more extensive, so people would favor this one just because it also is closer to the interstate. So should this one get overridden, the algorithm would just send people over here. And I'm guessing this one is not getting much love nowadays because this is a really nice supercharger station, more stalls, closer to the exit, and attached to a Cracker Barrel. So that's the type of thing that you would likely see from this. And let's go back to the post. There's some other cool graphics here. This is at Aventura, Florida, and you can see vehicles that charged. And the concept here is that they can get autonomized data from the vehicles and create a meta portfolio, a meta profile, that if a car has these telemetry elements, its percentage likelihood that it's going to pull into a supercharger in the next X number of minutes in a geofenced area around these superchargers is blank number. And from that blank number, you have these number of cars that are in that vicinity. You can basically assume whether or not that supercharger is going to be queuing soon or not. And if in the future you predict so, you have enough time then in order to subsequently react and redirect people elsewhere. Unless the people in these cars are like me and they're ignoring the nav and they're just going wherever the hell they want, which God forbid. But there are us nerds out there who go to charging stations because we like the looks of them. And I know I'm in some pretty rare company there, but I like the smell of new chargers. I don't know. And nothing's better than the smell of new Alpitronic hyperchargers in the morning, or a new V4 superchargers in the morning. Anyway, so it's cool to see that Tesla is still continuing to push the envelope, still leading the charging game, and it's Tesla's world. Everyone else is paying rent has been commonly thrown around as a phrase. I would have to say, as someone who watches DC Fast Charger, that is still the case. Every week they are on top of the heap, and it takes everyone else combined in order to make second place, and they are pushing the technology in the dash as well. Pretty cool to see. Anyway, thanks for watching.